How's it going, Knicks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Fireside Knicks. I'm your host, Dylan Becker, and I'm with my brother and co host, Justin Becker. And we got a couple of things we're going to cover in today's episode, but we're going to start with Josh Hart. He has had a very solid week since he made some comments, questioning his role a little bit, kind of a little frustrated, but then he clarified that he's not a disgruntled player and all that. He just wants to get involved more. And ever since then, he's been playing very well. We're going to dive into that first. We got a couple things we're going to talk about, but I'm going to pass it off to Justin. He's going to, share some of his thoughts on Josh Hart's productive week.
Yeah, in this one, we're going to talk about two players that have really had a very strong week. We're going to talk about Josh Hart first, and then we're also going to talk about Julius Randle. Both of those guys have had great weeks. Randle just one player of the week, I believe. We're going to get into him a little bit later in this episode, but we're going to start with Josh Hart first. Earlier in the week, I want to say around Monday or Tuesday, right before that Hornets game, a couple comments came out from Josh Hart basically saying, his role is kind of wonky right now. He wasn't saying he's unhappy or anything, but he was kind of hinting at the, I need to get involved more type thing, which he wasn't lying. I mean, if you watch the first part of this season, you would see for the most part Hart's been kind of uninvolved, especially in the offense, and he's passing up a lot of shots, a lot of pump fakes, things like that. Just kind of frustrating considering how impactful he was offensively last season. When he was traded over from the Blazers, you saw his offensive impact, even though he's heralded as a defensive guy, a gritty player with rebounding and tenacious defense, things like that. His offense was pretty good last year for what it was worth. Coming off the bench, he was averaging double digits. He was very efficient. He shot like 40 or 50% from three, with the Knicks last year. So, it was kind of weird to see him start the year off so poorly offensively, and you really started to question, what's going on. And then he came out with these comments. I have some of the quotes in front of me. He said, on Tuesday, this is before the Hornets game, so right before, he started to play well. He said, "I'm a rhythm player, so sometimes if I don't touch the ball for 4 or 5 minutes running up and down the floor, just catch and shoot, I might as well be playing with a football." That's kind of that's a stinger right there. That's a big quote, basically saying, I'm running around doing cardio, I'm not, not getting involved in the offense or anything. He's not lying. Like I said, I mean, everyone could see it that's been watching the games, and he also said, "I feel like I have no feel for the ball. There are definitely times that I pass up shots because I'm not in the rhythm and I don't like the feel of it." I believe him. I really do. Like I said, you would watch the games and he'd be wide open for three, and he would pump fake, drive, and then kick, result in some pretty ugly offense, to be quite honest. He'd turn the ball over. The shots that he would take, he didn't look comfortable taking them and they wouldn't fall, things like that. But, obviously after kind of admitting, that he's a little unhappy with his role, I don't want to say unhappy because he did clarify that he's not disgruntled or anything like that and that he's happy with being with the Knicks and whatnot. So I'm not saying that he was, unhappy or anything, but after those comments, really, he's played great. He followed that up with a 17-point performance against the Hornets, what I called it his best game of the season. When we made that episode, that post-game reaction, I called it his best game of the season to that point because, quite frankly, it was. We hadn't seen him really go off for, double-digit points really in a while, we felt like, and he was assertive, he was aggressive, he was playing like the Josh Hart we became, accustomed to last year. And he's played great this entire week. This week, he's averaging 14 points a game, really efficient, 66% from both the field and from three. Just being more aggressive, more assertive, things that you really like to see. You really saw the aggressiveness and assertiveness in their last game. I believe he had 15 points in the third quarter all by himself. The Knicks scored 15 points in a row that were all from Josh Hart. Just an explosion, really, offensively to his standards. You never see a guy like Josh Hart go for 15 points in a row like that. And I think he had like 3 or 4 threes in that stretch too. That was incredible to watch. I've never seen him do that. That was that's really what I've been waiting for out of him this whole season. Obviously they extended him in the offseason, the Knicks did. They brought him back, like they had to. I mean, that was, like I said, it was a match made in heaven. I said this a while back, that was something that had to be done. And it was done. I was very happy they did it. But at the beginning of the season, I was kind of questioning, like, man, maybe some of that money could have gone to Emmanuel quickly. You know what I mean? Like, the whole thing with Quickly's extension and whatnot, you really started to question, like, did we really prioritize Josh Hart over Emmanuel Quickly? Like, why would we do that? But, lately he's playing great. If he continues to play like that, this is honestly the Josh Hart that I got to know last season with the 25 games and in the playoffs that we saw from him last year. So hopefully he keeps playing like this. I don't see why he won't. It seems like those little comments coming out might have motivated him a little bit, perhaps, so I'm glad to see that he's playing well. It's a very strong week for him. This is easily his best stretch of the season by far, so Yeah, all in all, I'm pretty happy to see this. I kind of want to hear what you want to say about this now, though.
Yeah, I know 3 games is not like a large sample size by any means. It's a pretty small sample size. It's just a couple of games. But considering how slow of a start of a season he had, just any encouraging performances like this that he's having lately is a great sign because, as you alluded to, he wasn't involved in the offense like at all. He had many games really where he had like 2 points, 4 points, 0 points even. Games where he's passing up shots, pump faking, not really seeming confident out there really as a shooter or as a finisher, as an attacker, even as a playmaker, he looked kind of frazzled. He would make those little drives to the hoop and then kind of just jump and look around and see if anyone's open. And if they're not open, it's a turnover. So, seemed like he was kind of all over the place. I didn't really know exactly what was going on. You kind of, like you said, you kind of question, like, did we really make the right decision to, keep this guy around long term? But right now, I mean, I still think it was the right decision to bring him back. Don't get me wrong. Even if he was off to a slow start, he was very impactful to their winning success last season. And how he's playing right now is only proving that even more because, he's a core component to the depth that the team has. I've always said Emmanuel Quickly is like the main thing that keeps this team deep. Josh Hart is a huge also reason to that as well. You got to remember too, he's playing the backup 4 position for the Knicks. That is not an easy task for him. I know he doesn't play like a traditional guard. He plays more like a small forward, even a power forward type guy because he's not afraid to get into the paint, and he's also one of the league's best rebounding guards. But he's also not built like Julius Randle or somebody like that. He's a guard size at the end of the day, and he's being asked to play a position, quite frankly, he was not used to playing. He's kind of used to playing the small forward position, the shooting guard position, positions like that. Now he's all of a sudden asked to guard guys that are 6'10", 6'11", all like that each and every single night, coming off the bench, playing Julius Randle's minutes. That's a huge ask right there. And I think, for what it's worth, I think he's done a solid job, especially on the defensive side, because, like I said, it's not easy for him to do that. And he's still, been impactful defensively all season. You've seen that. We've seen him rebound well. We've seen him get in passing lanes. We were just wondering where the offense was going to come because we know Josh Hart is not like an explosive offensive player. We're not, we're not saying that we're expecting Josh Hart to drop 20 points every single night. No, that's not the type of player he is. He's the type of guy that kind of is like that Swiss Army knife. Guy, there's a little bit of everything. Can give you a couple threes here and there, can give you a couple layups, can get maybe a couple dunks, a lot of rebounds, but can give you, a couple assists, couple of this, a couple of things. Not like anything that he like excels in, right? But we just wanted to see some more action out of him because watching him take the floor and play 30 minutes and get like no points on offense or turn the ball over, not really move the ball well, really hurt the spacing as well. I think that needs to be mentioned too. The big thing was, that Josh Hart can provide spacing because he can shoot and he's efficient when he shoots. And when he's shooting well, he's incredibly efficient. I mean, you just said he's shooting 66% from three over the last 3 games. And if I'm not mistaken, he's attempted 11 or 13 total threes, which is quite a lot considering that he was barely attempting any shots, period, the first 16 games of the season. So, besides the point, when Hart wasn't being confident enough and wasn't shooting the ball, wasn't really doing anything, it was really hurting the Knicks spacing, and we saw that each and every single time. A lot of times he was out on the floor, the offense was just flat, stagnant, not much movement really at all. A lot of bad shots, a lot of times where they were, using up a whole shot clock and forcing up prayers at the end of it. Not much was really going on. Now that he's starting to kind of, get more acclimated again, kind of get into a rhythm, we're really starting to see the impact once again. It's no coincidence that the Knicks have won, 3 straight games and 10 of their last 13. The 3 straight games really is a lot to Josh Hart because he started to really show what he can do again in these last 3 games. I believe he's had 2 17-point performances over this stretch, which, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he only hit like 10 points like once or twice prior to that during this season. So it's really encouraging to see. I'm really happy to see him kind of, just get back into a rhythm. I had a feeling it was going to happen at some point because Josh Hart is an experienced veteran. This isn't like a rookie you're talking about or like a second-year player. This guy's been in the league for a long time now. I believe he's been in the league for like 6 or 7 years. So, you had a feeling that he was going to start to feel it again at some point. You just want to know when. And I'm glad we're seeing it now. And overall, I'm happy to see him, yielding positive results for not only himself, but the Knicks as well. The Knicks are winning as a result of him playing well. And as I mentioned before, it's a testament to their depth when he's playing well. And when he's not playing well, it just goes to show how much that can really hurt the Knicks. Because, when you're running a 9-man rotation, you're going to rely on all 9 guys to really impact the game every single night. You're not running 10-man where maybe one guy can have kind of a dud game and you kind of just live with it. When you're running 9 guys, you need all 9 guys to contribute. And especially when you have Josh Hart, who's playing behind Julius Randle, playing those minutes and expected to play, the wing positions, really kind of just be anywhere on the court. You really want him to be impactful 24/7. Obviously, it's not always possible, but you just want to see it. But, I do think this is a good time to transition into the next player that we're going to talk about that you mentioned in the opening, Julius Randle. He won Player of the Week. It was announced today or yesterday for you guys watching the video, since this will be up on Tuesday. But yeah, he won Player of the Week, which, quite frankly, I'll be honest, I didn't think that was going to happen. He did have a fantastic week, do not get me wrong. I didn't think he was going to be named Player of the Week, and then I read his stats and see exactly why he won Player of the Week. And I just want to say that's a remarkable turnaround, because I think we all know by now just how bad he was playing the first 6 games of the season. You and I even came on here and we're really going off on him for the first time ever. You and I have been kind of known to defend Randle to the core for most of his time as a Knick, and that was really the first time that I, at least publicly, have kind of outed him and kind of said, like, he needs to do something or else we're in trouble, because Randall's always had these kinds of up and down skids, but that was a really concerning trend. But right now, he's made one remarkable turnaround. He had a pretty productive month in November, and winning Player of the Week is a huge step in the right direction. I'm gonna pass it off to you though, Justin. I want you to lay out your thoughts on Randall winning Player of the Week, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, before I get into Randall, I just want to touch on one thing you mentioned about Josh Hart. You mentioned the lack of spacing. I really think that series against the Miami Heat kind of, I don't want to say exposed Josh Hart, but I feel like that kind of started this whole trend of the hesitating on open threes and things like that. He had to start for Quentin Grimes a couple games in that series because Quentin Grimes was injured, I believe. And at the start of that series, you really question the amount of spacing. There was no spacing. Josh Hart was taking a whole bunch of threes that he wasn't making. And I feel like that did a number on his confidence and is the reason he was hesitating for, basically since that series, he's been hesitating on threes. But I'm glad to see him taking them now and he's making them. So, enough about Josh Hart, though. We're going to get into Julius Randle now. Like you said, he won Player of the Week. He averaged 24 points, 13 rebounds, and almost 8 assists per game this week as the Knicks went 3-0. I mean, that's insane. That's just phenomenal. That's not many guys are 25, 13, and 8, that you could find around the NBA. That's incredible. We've been saying over and over again, he's been turning it around. He's starting to come around. He's starting to play some good ball. The beginning of the season was so brutal. Like you said, me and you kind of publicly outed him for the first time, really. He's always been one of my favorite players. I'm always going to defend him, even no matter how his tenure with the Knicks ends. I don't care, if he gets traded this year, if he gets traded in 3 years. Whatever happens with Julius Randle, I'm always going to appreciate him. He brought this team out of the gutter, really. He was asked to do a lot, signed as a free agent to be our franchise player in 2019 after missing out on all the big fish that year. So, for someone like that to kind of step in and own the spotlight, really, I always will respect him for that, regardless of how ugly his play style may be and things like that and how controversial his game is and stuff like that. So, enough chit chat about that. So, obviously, like I said, start of the season, rough. 13 points a game. I believe it was like, I have the numbers in front of me, 27% from the field and 22% from three through those first 6 games. And the Knicks were 2-4. Me and you had said that, if the Knicks are going to win this season, if they're going to have a lot of success, that he has to play well. And honestly, that is not a lie, because ever since those first 6 games where he played horrible, he's played great in the 13 games since then. He's averaging 23 points, 10 rebounds, 5.5 assists per game, shooting 47% from the field through these last 13 games. And the team is 10-3 in those 13 games. I mean, the numbers don't lie. Like I said, they win when he plays good. I don't know what more proof you really need. You know what I mean? So obviously 23, 10, and 5 is much closer to the version of Julius Randle that we've become accustomed to. This is exactly who he is really as a player. These are pretty close to the numbers he put up both times he made All NBA. So I'm pretty confident in saying that he's back and he's back to his all-star form. He's really turned his season around. I believe he's back up over 20 points a game on the season now. He's back up over 40% from the field on the season now. Considering where he started, obviously you don't want him finishing the year with those numbers. You don't want him to finish the year shooting only 40% from the field or anything. But considering where he started, in the dirt, really 27% from the field, taking a whole lot of shots too. You saw the memes of the Julius Randle tour, and it's, Julius Randle went 2 for 15, 3 for 21, 4 for 17, 5 for 20, just awful, awful shooting numbers, and it hurt to see. I hate seeing that. That was just, I almost felt bad in a way because he was taking so much heat for that, and he wasn't the only player in the NBA that was off to a bad start. So I don't know how fair it was that he was catching all that heat, but, it was justified. He was playing pretty crappy, if I'm being completely honest. So I'm glad to see him turning it around. Winning player of the week like this is pretty notable because this is already the second Knicks player to win player of the week. Jalen Brunson just 2 weeks ago won player of the week. It was Jalen Brunson won it the week ending November 20th. Paolo Banchero won it last week. And now Julius Randle wins it this week. This just shows that the Knicks are rolling. You know what I mean? They have two players that win player of the week in a 3-week span. They're rolling right now, and their two best players have it going. And when they have it going like this, they win. They win ball games. I don't really have much else to say other than I'm happy that he's playing well and that the Knicks are winning. I mean, what's not to like about that? I know some people will probably, be like, oh, Randall stinks, all this, that, and they probably see Obi Toppin playing pretty decently in Indiana. He's not playing bad. I can acknowledge that. He's not playing bad by any means. They're going to see that though and be like, oh, why would we trade Obi Toppin? We should have traded Randall. Even after he just won player of the week, people will probably still be saying that. So you're never going to win sometimes when it comes to Julius Randle. Sometimes, you just can't prove people wrong. I'm not going to sit here and try to prove anyone wrong. You guys already know where I stand on Randle. I think he's an exceptional player. I think he's very important to this team. And yeah, I kind of just want to hear your thoughts on this now, though.
Yeah, I think we all know that Nick's Twitter absolutely loves Julius Randle. Am I right? That was sarcasm. But with that, aside from that, of course, like you said, Obi Toppin is actually having a good season in Indiana. I do want to acknowledge that first off because I know some Knicks fans are going to go, oh, but you guys said it was good that we traded Obi Toppin. I still think that was the right decision to make, but I am happy to see him succeeding. I hope he continues to succeed. But right now we have Julius Randle on our team, and he's back. He is back. I'm not even kind of back. He is back. He's starting to play really well again, and like you said, much closer to the All-Star form that we saw last year. I wouldn't even rule out that he can make the All-Star team again. I really wouldn't rule that out yet. I know he had such an awful start that it sounds pretty outlandish to say, but if he keeps playing like how he did this past week for, the next month or two, I wouldn't rule out another All-Star appearance to him. I really wouldn't rule that out. There aren't that many power forwards that give you the production he provides. Power forwards like that provide you 25, 10, and 5 or whatever that he put up last season, those don't grow on trees. You're talking about guys like Giannis and guys like that at the power forward position that provide that kind of production. Not saying Julius Randle is Giannis Antetokounmpo. No, of course, Giannis is like one or two of the best players in the NBA. Julius Randle is nowhere near that, but that's besides the point. I'm just happy to see him, yielding good results because, like like we said before, those first 6 games were just awful, man. It was a rough watch, and even now sometimes during this month of November, the month of November, excuse me, we're in December now, so I can't say this month of November, but during November, there were some stretches where it was like, man, this guy is tough to watch. He had some rough first halves or some rough second halves, some defensive lapses. Those are going to happen sometimes, but I think the overall play was just so much better than the first 6 games that I'm content with with a couple mistakes here and there, because mistakes are going to happen to any player in the NBA. Yes, of course, I want Randall to fix those mistakes and, play some more aggressive defense at times or, actually shoot better shots, not some low percentage shots. But I do think we're seeing that improve over time. The past couple games, his defense has been much better, more aggressive. He's getting aggressive on the glass. He's averaging over 10 rebounds this season with Mitchell Robinson at center too, taking a lot of those rebounds as well. So I think that needs to be appreciated as well. And even besides the point, I think his offense is a lot better. I think he's starting to kind of realize where his hot spots are on the court. It looks like he's attacking the basket a lot more, which is what I've always wanted him to do. I don't mind him shooting a couple threes here and there, of course, because it enhances some spacing, and he does, of course, have the ability to shoot the three ball. Even if it's not at a magically great rate, he can still shoot the three ball at a decent rate, a serviceable rate, maybe slightly below average, but you get the point that I'm making. He's obviously much better around the basket, and he's started to do that a lot more lately. and it's working for him. He draws so many fouls underneath the paint because he's so strong, and he gets that head fake every single time. Like it's a really good move, and I really think he needs to keep doing that because I don't know how he gets defenders to keep falling for that, but it works every time, and I feel like he's always getting those and ones. Those are basically free points for him, which leads to another thing. He's improving in the free throw line as well. The free throw shooting overall as a team has been pretty bad this year for the Knicks, but over the past couple weeks, Randall has definitely improved from the free throw line. Yes, of course, it's not perfect. I don't know exactly what his percentage is, but I know it's not like amazing. I know it's kind of just like, not that good. But given how bad it was to start, I mean, any improvement is great to see. Just because when he started that season off so bad, I was like, man, how is he going to get out of this? Because like that was undoubtedly the worst stretch of basketball I had ever seen him play. Now, maybe there were other stretches when he wasn't a Knick where he might have had a worse stretch, but at least from what I've seen, because the most I've watched of Julius Randle is, of course, during his time as a Knick. That was the worst stretch of basketball I'd ever seen from him. Everything he was putting up was just bad shots, not good defense. He wasn't hustling. All this stuff. You wondered what was going on. He said that the ankle was still bothering him. I believe him at this point. I fully believe him. I know when he said that, a lot of Knicks fans kind of, read that as an excuse or, not necessarily something that was actually bothering him, and he was kind of just using that to kind of get away with, having an awful start to the season. But I believe him. He looks healthy now. He looks comfortable. He looks more like he's in a rhythm. He looks more in sync with the offense. I think that's a big thing to mention. He looks in sync with the offense. During those first 6 games, it seemed like he was never on the same page with the other guys on the floor with him. It seemed like that was never the case. He was, not completing fast breaks properly. He was looking to take the shot himself rather than move the ball around. Kind of just was being lazy, wasn't really doing the right things, kind of just like the simple things. You were wondering what was going on through his head. But ever since then, he's been really improved in that. He's, gotten better up here with the IQ and the mental games. Of course, it's not perfect. I got to make that clear because I know some Knicks fans are going to go, oh, but this game he stunk. So why are you saying he's been playing good? I know he's had a couple bad games still. I'm not saying he's been perfect. It takes a while to really come back from just that awful start. I'm just going to put that out right now because when you have that bad of a start, that's going to take a hit to your confidence, and that's also going to make this up here kind of all wonky. You're going to start thinking like, man, what am I doing? What's going on? Why am I missing so many shots? This, that. Your confidence takes a hit. It takes a while to bounce back from that. I think he's bounced back in a fantastic way, though, honestly. I think, as you alluded to before, he's always handled this kind of stuff pretty well. You never saw him kind of like rage out on reporters and say like, oh, stop asking me about my bad start or anything. He never did none of that. He always acknowledged that he wasn't playing well and that he even said, I'm not worried. I'll get back in the rhythm soon. And he looks to be right. He seems like he's back in that rhythm. I'm happy to see it happen. I was honestly really worried the first 6 games. Maybe at this point, that seems like a pretty big overreaction. But I think it was justified at the time because we've seen, Julius Randle is a guy of high highs and low lows. You and I have had this conversation many times about that. He's a guy that won't always provide you consistency. And that's kind of frustrating. But his highs are so high that you kind of just hope that he can hit the high highs for an extended stretch of games that can get the Knicks more wins. And, one more thing I want to add too. When we lashed out on Randall last month during his really bad start, I said that if the Knicks want to succeed and they want to win games, it starts with Julius Randle. That was the first thing I said. And so far, it seems like I'm right. Because since those first 6 games, the Knicks are 10-3. The Knicks are rolling. Ever since Julius Randle started to get out of that funk and started playing better basketball, the Knicks started to win. And if you look at 2021, that Knicks team on paper was not a good team. Even the team I'm talking about that made the playoffs, that was not a good team at all. It honestly was not on paper. Julius Randle played so well, though, and carried that team to a playoff spot. You could argue in 2023, him and Brunson basically just carried the reins because RJ Barrett had an awful season. And Emmanuel quickly, of course, had a good 6-man campaign. But that was about it. That was kind of about it there. When Julius Randle plays well, the team does very well. The team relies on him. So it's just very encouraging to see him play well because that just equals more wins for the New York Knicks. And right now, as of this video, they're 12-7. And they have a big game against the Milwaukee Bucks coming up. If Randle keeps playing like this, I have good faith that they can beat the Bucks in that in-season tournament game. And heck, why not win the whole NBA Cup? Why not win the whole thing? You know what I mean? You and I still have mixed opinions about the NBA in-season tournament, but who knows? Maybe they can mess around and win the whole thing if they can knock off the Bucks. And if I think that really starts with Julius Randle because he's going to be going up against Giannis Antetokounmpo in that game, and that's a very tough matchup, not just for him but for anybody. So I think that'll be a real test to see if he, can continue to play well even against one of the game's best players in Giannis. But, I do think this is a good time to wrap the episode up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you guys' support. Let us know what you got to say about Josh Hart and Julius Randle in the comments section below. We'd love to hear what you guys got to say. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, of course, this YouTube page that you are watching the video on. The audio versions of these podcasts are going to be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating on those. You can follow our personal X accounts. They're above our heads. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe on this video, and we will see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out.